Oh, hi! This week, we're gonna do a mock-up for our Stede Bonnet cosplay. Part of me posting the, cosplans diary, whatever we're gonna call the video last week, like my plans for this costume, is yes, to share the idea and if there's input some of y'all have before it's too late, but also just to hold me accountable because I'm really good at saying, I'm gonna do this thing. And then it's like the high of telling someone the idea I came up with, the idea itself is enough to give me the endorphins I need and then just cruise along to the next thing. But I want to make this, not just think about making it. So here we are. So this is, I don't know, work log number 1. My initial plan for this first week of stuff was to do more, but with the storm we got last weekend, I wrecked myself because it was like shoveling 8 inches of wet cement. And this hurts a lot. Where my right wrist, I'm kind of just used to that one hurting, but the joints that don't usually bother me are both my elbows and then my left wrist, even though I'm left-handed, but I think I do the heavy lifting with my right arm and do the dexterous stuff with my left hand, so that's probably why this one doesn't get as much strain on it, but goddamn does it hurt. Weirdly enough, using scissors and sewing and pulling on things didn't make it feel that much better, so I'm going easy on myself this week. Not that I have to justify not doing a whole costume in a day. I just had more ambitions than this for today, and I'm obviously falling short of those, so just trying not to be disappointed in myself. Compassionate deadlines is what costuming drama always says, and I need to say that to myself more. It's not a rush to get this done, it's just for the fun of it. I want this to be an enjoyable process. It is like a very visible thing, so anyway, just trying to be less in my head about wearing these things, so if you see them more often, it's because I'm finally letting myself help myself with things. Also, if you have any advice, I am open to any and all things. If you also deal with chronic joint pain, because all of them hurt except the elbows, because even this is off the docket now. Anyways, you may also notice that I have 3 drinks on my table because I am part of the 3 drinks club. I am always in the middle of 3 things. It's usually water, coffee, the 1 mug from like 8 o'clock this morning, actually probably 7 o'clock this morning, and it is 3 p.m. Oh, hold on, I have another one. Then a wild card drink. I don't know, I'm not really like a soda person, but this is a pink apple and lemon seltzer. I'm kind of a raspberry lime or black cherry seltzer kind of gal. Cherry lime is also not bad. This is my fancy drink. I had vanilla chai flavored shake earlier, but we definitely haven't had enough water today, so let's bottoms up. This is the notebook I have been writing my notes in for, I don't know, the past year? Sarah, I don't remember when you sent me this, but I've been using it for every video. Oh, actually, yeah, it has been a year. Amazing. Because the first page is the beer bustier top with the flowers on it, like the pink florally thing. I'm hopefully putting a picture here so you know what I'm talking about, or linking to the video. That was a year ago that I made that. I mean, give or take a couple weeks, but it took me a year, and I am finally, okay, I'm still gonna use this page. I should have used it today, but I just apparently stopped writing notes after I cut out all the fabric and all the other steps. I just didn't notate, but I did it in the past hour, so hopefully it's fresh enough in my brain I'll remember all the little things to tell you. I don't know that I've ever finished a notebook before. This is maybe the only time. It's just all the notes while I'm working on a video. All the B-roll of me doing the actual sewing and cutting and prepping and all that stuff. Sometimes ironing if I'm feeling fancy. It's all the stuff I superimpose over me talking here, because I don't know how it is for y'all, but I think it's probably easier to follow along with what I'm doing, and I feel like I get better shots of the thing I'm working on, because when I used to just sit and tell you what I was doing while I was working on the project, I never showed you the making part because it would involve moving my camera every time, and I didn't want to reset it to get back to the talking head part of the video. So that's why things have changed here over the years. So hopefully it makes it more interesting for y'all, so it's not just you looking over my shoulder and my whole body blocking the camera, though I'm still very good at that. Some things are just a natural gift, you know? Anyway, I write notes while I'm filming those bits so that when I sit and do the talking head part here, perhaps we can call this the testimonial part of the video, I can just read off the notes that I took for myself and it'll jog my memory, hopefully. Though, listen, remembering things is not a skill set of mine. Okay, now we're for real getting into it. Pattern I am using for this is the Simplicity Costume 8750. I think it's supposed to be this medieval sorceress princessy look, but I feel like it can skew a little piratey depending on how we're going about this. The biggest size that was on this specific pattern, because when you buy patterns, if you don't know, usually they have two different sizes, so like the smaller end of the size range that they offer will be in a separate package than the bigger size range, which is a bummer because I'm usually like right between the two. I'm either the smallest of the big sizes or the biggest of the smallest sizes, so like I feel like I'm stuck between the two of them. But here's the thing with commercial patterns is they give a lot of ease, and I was prepared for there to be a lot of ease, but the most I've taken out in past projects was like 4 inches total, I believe. This says it has 8 inches of ease. So I'm really glad that the pattern I cut out was too small for my initial measurements. Also, I did a slightly smaller seam allowance than what they say to do, just because out of habit, I use the edge of my foot and it keeps my lines even, and I'd rather have even lines and just try to do the math and account for that. A little bit less a seam allowance. Most of the time, especially if I'm using knits or something, it's not worth stressing about. Something like this, I thought it might be an issue, but it worked in my favor. And because this has 8 inches of ease, it actually ended up fitting kind of perfectly. Now, the front of this is gonna have like a panel sitting in the front, and then I'm gonna be lacing it across the front, and I'm actually very excited about this. The initial pattern does call for a side zip, but there's no reason for that, so I'm not gonna do it. I can already get into it without involving a side zipper, so we're not going down that road. I used the pattern pieces to cut the fabric out, but I didn't look at any of the instructions. I mean, I looked at them, and then I immediately pushed it out of my brain and just pretended they didn't exist, and then just went about my own business. So yeah, the top part is like princess seam corsety type thing. It's supposed to have boning. I haven't done that part yet, but I think this is all gonna work out. I'm also okay with this fitting on the looser side, again, because it is adjustable in the front, or I'm gonna make it adjustable in the front, where the other main garment piece we're doing for this is gonna be just a big circle skirt, and I don't need a pattern for that. I'm just going to need to make my own waistband and then fit the skirt into it, where the real meat of this project is going to be in the details. I cannot wait to adorn this once it's all together. But first things first, doing the mock-up, I decided to use this gigantic roll of, I think this still counts as a brocade. It's not shiny or anything. Maybe a jacquard. I don't think it's a jacquard. If you know, please feel free to school me on this because I want to learn these things. It's definitely that like reversible print situation. So I think it falls into that category, but I did not go to school for such things. I don't know nothing. Yeah, I have this huge roll. I barely used any of it for this project. Not that I'm actively trying to waste it, but I wasn't being particularly precious about things I was cutting out. These aren't really my colors, and dragonflies are fine. I do like them because they eat mosquitoes, so thank you for your service, but this fabric does not like excite me, so it's not like I'm going to be making myself stuff to wear. But if you have suggestions on how else to use this other than just mock-ups for other things. Curtains seem the obvious thing, but again, this isn't really striking my fancy, so I don't know that I want to incorporate it more into my life. Bags of some kind would be a good move, but you tell me. And yeah, this whole thing was going to end up in the trash, but my best friend's mom was like, I'm going to give you some fabric. So she sent that along to me, and I could not have been more appreciative. And why I'm specifically using that instead of like a bed sheet or something is because it's a similar weight to this dress that I'm going to take apart. It's like a medium weight satiny finish woven fabric. So it's the same like actual weight, only has stretch on the bias. It doesn't move weft wise or wane wise. I think I am correct in my choice of mock-up fabric for this because I have done mock-ups in incorrect fabric before and then regretted it. We're like, that's the point of doing the mock-up, is to test fit stuff. So why would I go through that whole process and not be using the correct material for the mock-up? So yeah, the only thing I had done before I started filming this today was cut out all of the like tissue pattern pieces, and I realized that there are 11 pieces, no, 12 pieces that make up the bodice. Had considered folding the fabric and cutting them out at the same time, but if I folded it a certain way, then the way the dragonflies were facing were going to be upside down. Like, again, it's a mock-up. It shouldn't really have mattered, but in the off chance that I finish this into something else and want to like give it away to someone, I want them all to be at least facing the same direction. Where thankfully the blue fabric I'm using, it's just a solid blue, so I don't have to worry about any directions of anything other than like the grain line. But yeah, I don't want to mess with folding this over. Also, it's like really slippery fabric because it's so smooth on the top side. So I didn't want anything scooting around while I was cutting it out. And I also had all of my notches marked and snipped into them. And I just didn't want to cut things out on the fold, where yes, this was a less time efficient way, but it made all of this more enjoyable. I kind of like chalking stuff out onto the fabric like this. Perhaps it feels a little bit like I'm setting up a crime scene, but also it's a little bit out of spite because the things I got yelled at for at the costume shop job was it was always speed over accuracy, where I need to get good at the accuracy part of things before I can be quick at it. Listen, this was one of many issues, and I don't mean to like harp on that place of employment, but this is a little bit of a spite so for me, if you feel me on that. So I took my sweet ass time cutting these pieces out, and I did mark with chalk, like I put the number on each one of the like pattern piece number, just so when I looked at the layout on the instructions, that's the one thing I referred to. Bodice middle front, bodice side back, stuff like that. So I did put like 1 through 7, I think, were the total numbers. Oh, and wait, actually it's not 11 pieces, it's 13 pieces, because I forgot that there are sleeves involved with this as well. Now I did think about cutting the sleeves short to start with, because I am generally an above the elbows kind of gal, but I thought, since I have all this extra fabric, we're just gonna try it, see how I like the fit, and if I don't like it, I can cut them shorter. So I cut them full length, and I was really diligent while I was laying all of the pieces out to do one side with the pattern right side up, and then flip it over if it said to cut 2. Do it with the wrong side of the pattern facing up, and still mark the notches where I needed to. So that way, you know, I had the mirrored pieces, so I wouldn't have like 2 front, center, left bodice pieces. There was one small piece, the center back, that had to get cut on the fold, so that was not the end of the world, because also it was very small. So I just like cut a piece off and then folded it widthwise and cut that piece out. Also, writing the numbers on these also kept the orientation correct. So it was easier to tell where the top of the pattern piece was versus the bottom, where most of the pieces, it was pretty obvious to me, which is nice to know. Like, that is progress in my brain, because I understand how it goes together, like how the pieces make the shape. The jump from 2-dimensional bits to 3-dimensional bits, like it makes a little more sense to me now. So I would like to think I'd be able to figure it out anyway, but why make it harder than it needs to be? I'd rather just kind of foolproof it for myself, because I'm really good at making very dumb mistakes. So yeah, once I had all of the pieces chalked out, I cut kind of loosely around all of the sections and got a nice big pile, and I brought it into the living room, where I had a little lunch break with Bert. We hung out on the couch, and I have been watching through the show True Blood, where, if you have seen it, please tell me anything and everything. I'm only on season 6. I'm about 5 episodes in, so I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I am enjoying this season. I have not enjoyed pretty much any of the other seasons. I'm thankful that the person that shared it with me wanted to share something they love with me, so I'm not trying to like shit on that person. But if it weren't for them loving it so hard and wanting me to watch it because they like it so much, I find that as a place of privilege, to have a friend that wants to share some of their favorite things with me, because it means a lot that someone wants to tell me about something like that, and then we can like share in this. I'm excited to talk about this show. Oh boy. Anyway, so once I had my lunch, had some Bert Snuggles, watched an episode of this show, I came back into the shop, laid out all my pieces. I had all the scraps, right? I did put those into the trash, because these aren't really good for like stuffing things, where I do save a lot of the scraps, but these are like so dense and just not good for what I end up using the scraps for. One of these pieces was small enough that I accidentally put it in with the scrap pile. Did have to dig that back out, and now it's back with its family. Had a little bit of a homeward bound moment with that guy. So this is where I referred to the little chart on the paper, said what each numbered piece was, and that was really helpful in getting the full layout. So I had the front, center, and left and right sides. That was 7 pieces total. Then I had the back, center, and 2 pieces either side, so it's another 5. Wait, that's 12. Can I not count? Yeah, that makes sense, because there's 1 through 8 are the numbers used for this, but 5 and 1 are the front and back center pieces, and those were not doubled up, so it's 16 minus 2. It doesn't really matter, it's just a lot of pieces to keep track of. I laid them out in these separate sections, and then I piled them on top of each other in order, so that when I brought everything over to the sewing machine, I put the sleeves and the front center panel down first because those were either not getting stitched in or stitched in at the very end. And it's very obvious to me which pieces are the sleeves because they're massive compared to everything else. And then I assembled the back pieces. That went pretty quickly. It is the very curvy bits that are a little tricky, and I kind of lost track of all of the marks that I made because it's a multicolor fabric and it's a woven and there's a curve here, so it's more likely for the curve to become misshapen and, you know, start to fray a little bit. So I just lost sight of where the notches were, but I made my way through and just eased the curves into each other to make it look really nice. I mean, I didn't like press any of these out, so it's not like they looked great, but it was getting the job done. I then attached the left front and the right front, and those were 3 pieces each, and that also went pretty smoothly. The mistake I made, and this is why I specifically did really long stitches, like I was basting all of this together because it's a test run. Doing long stitches makes it easier to redo whatever I need to do at this stage because I'm aware that we're testing stuff out and there doesn't need to be permanency at this point. So once I had the front, left, and right and the back sewn, I went to attach it at the side seams. And then as I was finishing the second one, it occurred to me like, right, I didn't put the sleeves in. And the general process of me constructing garments is once I have the front and back bodice sections done, I attach them at the shoulders first. Well, that's just one big curve. I sew in the sleeve each side, and then I put the sleeves and the side seams right sides together and do that all in one go. So it looks like this. It's hard to show you. There's a lot going on here. Did that stitch, and then it was time to try it on. As always, the actual assembly of a garment almost seems like the quickest part of the whole project. It's all in the prep. It's all in the cutting the fabric out and pressing it and deciding on the pattern in the first place. And if you're using a pattern, cutting the pattern pieces out. And if you're doing stay stitching, thankfully this didn't have darts. I think that might be my least favorite prep step to do. I hate it the most. I'd rather do princess seams on everything, even though it is probably more time consuming. Darts you gotta do before you actually get into anything. And like, I don't know. It's like a hurdle at the start of the race, but you know what? To call myself out, it's not a race. I don't need to rush through this, so it's fine. I need to make more peace with darts in general. I didn't press any of the seams out. It certainly would have looked nicer had I done that. It didn't feel like a good use of my time, and what I mean by that is I didn't want to, so I didn't. Then yeah, I did a little test fit. So the front panel, I don't think it's gonna end up attaching to anything because it's kind of gonna get threaded to the front, I believe. That's where I'm probably gonna check the actual pattern instructions, but I still may just wing it and figure out my own way to attach the busk. But because it's not attached to anything at the moment, I pinned it to my t-shirt like a little bib, like a little fancy dragonfly brocade bib, and then fit everything else over it. I absolutely despised the sleeve length, so I think I actually cut that first. You know, tried it on, really hated how it fit past the elbows, marked with my fingers where I wanted the end of the sleeve to be, and then the end of the sleeve has this like angle to it, so I just tried to match that. I could have grabbed a ruler, but I just did a quick swipe with my rotary cutter. Cut off like over half the sleeve, I think, which does not surprise me for my general sleeve preferences. So now that point of the sleeve ends basically at my elbow. So if I'm adding a lace flounce to this, I think it's going to look amazing. I think it's gonna look so cool and like really get the effect I am picturing in my head. Very pleased with how that ended up looking. So then I had that cut off piece, I just matched it to the other sleeve. Then I tried it back on. Then I attached the bib with just a safety pin to my shirt. I'm really into how this came out. Now I know there will be more shaping to this and it will flare out a little bit more at the bottom once I have the boning pieces in and there's that seam rigidity happening. I think it's gonna look really cool. I think it's gonna look really, really cool, and I'm very happy with how this came out. I really expected to have to do other adjustments. The shoulders, you know, there's not a ton hanging onto my shoulder, so I may widen that a little bit and like bring it in kind of towards my neck a little bit more because I just have very broad shoulders. There's a lot happening here. On-screen body parts, it's mostly clavicle happening. So I do think I'm gonna widen that. Easiest adjustment I could make to this whole thing. Went so much smoother than I was anticipating, and I kind of was surprised by this, but also thankful because again, my hands don't feel great. So if all I'm doing the rest of today is sitting and editing, also Patreon folks, I am going to be making the mix CDs, starting them tonight, but working throughout this week. If you don't know, every March, because it is my birthday month, I send out mix CDs because I'm stuck in 2002 and it's just a fun thing to put together and send out to everybody. I hope everyone I send it to actually has a way to play it, but for those of you that might not, I do also post a playlist to the Patreon page, so you can get access to that. I have a Spotify playlist and a YouTube playlist because not everything that I have a song for is on Spotify, because that's just how much of a hipster I am, but also not everything's available on YouTube. So if you go between the two, you're gonna get most of them. And I also write out the whole track list on the Patreon post and in the little letters that I send out to everyone, because I basically send liner notes. That's the word. I spend way too much time on this. Like, I have been building the framework for the playlist in my head for about 2 weeks, and I really like getting my Patreon physical rewards out at the beginning of the month. So I feel like I'm behind, but I also feel like y'all probably want me to put the proper time into making this. And I was gonna do it last week, but there's just been so much snow. It's like winter came all at once in the past 2 weeks. I'm over it. I just haven't had proper rest time between storms, and it is definitely wearing on me. So speaking of Patreon, if you are one of my fellow bog trolls over there, you are the ones making all of this happen. Thank you so much for supporting my literal dream. It is directly because of y'all that I get to do this stuff and take it a little easier on myself when my body is screaming at me to let it rest. Thank you all for helping me not break myself further. Truly appreciate it. If you would like to join, you won't be able to get the physical perks I'm sending out for this month, but if you would like to join, you will get access to the playlist that I put up on the actual Patreon post. Although the window to get the actual mix CDs and the liner notes and stuff sent out to you, the physical perks, that ship has already sailed. But mail time stuff I send out every single month. So if you want some stuff for April, I already have my plans for what that perk is going to be, and I'm extra excited about it because I've already put a lot of work into that. So it's my favorite thing. That and the custom shit tier are my two favorite things to spend time on every month. So thank you all for letting me work on those things. It's very fun. Oh, hi, it's future me. I'm filming this bit a couple days before the video is going out for real this time. Y'all let me take last week off from posting a video. There's just a bunch of stuff that happened. Everything's fine. Everybody's fine. There's just a lot going on that I should have anticipated but didn't, and then we got hit with just a buck wild storm again. It has taken up a lot of my time and energy, physical and mental. This video is obviously going up on Friday. I am going to start posting, as you will see, later in the day. Usually I post at noon, like right at noon, but I'm going to start posting closer to like 5 o'clock. Hopefully that'll let people see it a little easier. People are off work, what have you. Also, I'm on East Coast time, so I know that's a lot earlier for everywhere else in the world. So just trying to like hone that in. I've been posting at noon for what feels like years now, so time to switch it up a little, but still on Fridays. I will, however, be taking next Friday off from posting a video. It is my birthday week, so I have a couple things planned, including they're making a birthday beer for me at Rockingham Brewing Company. I'm going to be there tomorrow, Saturday, so if you're around, come on out, say hi. I'm going to be behind the bar all day. I'm very excited about it. I think we also have a food truck. Yeah, I think there's like a pop-up something that may be happening inside. I don't know if the food truck is actually going to pull around because, again, a lot of snow, like minimum 14-15 inches, and that was at like 10 o'clock last night. We got more overnight, and I just don't even want to look, to be honest. But yeah, so there won't be a video. I'll post a short or two next week, but I'm gonna actually, for real, take a like break week and just relax a little bit, because all y'all let me take the one Friday off a month, but I then either spend more time working on a project than I would have otherwise, which is fine, that's part of the purpose of that 1 week, or I overwork myself in other capacities and don't actually take the time off, you know what I mean? So gonna go to a really fun event, and it's also my brother's birthday on my birthday, so I'll go spend some time with family. It's my mom's birthday today. Everybody's birthday is in March. It's so many things, and also St. Patrick's Day is Friday, so big family dinner. Actually, it's one of those, like, I get 2 Thanksgivings. I will be having 2 St. Patrick's Day dinners, and I'm very excited. But yeah, just wanted to drop in and give a heads up because I did mean to post this video last Friday and it didn't happen. So now I'm starting to repeat myself back to whatever outro I was doing last week. I'll talk to you later. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you all for coming along on this gentleman pirate voyage. I'm excited to see where we end up with all this. It's gonna be a fun road. I can feel it. All right, I will see you back here with another video next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out. Yeah, it did crack myself in the tooth.